You know the tale of a Pokemon game. Protagonist gets their first Pokemon, proceeds to challenge the gyms, beats the league. But what happens when the Pokemon League challenge isn't happening? During the off-season? Well, in the Chimera region, Pokemon high schools host their own regional tournaments. Welcome to the world of Pokemon Winter. Our journey begins with us meeting Coach Zeke as he finishes presenting to the class, having given us applications assigned to join the Pokemon team, which basically is just the sport team in the Pokemon universe. I, of course, signed up, but the only issue is we don't have a Pokemon, and of course our classmates make sure to bully us for this. But one of the members of the Pokemon team sticks up for us. This kid is Miles. He only recently transferred to our school, but he's the #1 person on the team. After that, we go home and it is assumed some time has passed because it's now the first day of snow and it's our birthday. Lucky us. We head downstairs to talk to our dad, who happens to be the cop of the small town. Dad wishes us a happy birthday and tells us he knows it's not much, but he got us running shoes, which must be wheelies because now we can zoom! Dad notes that he can tell we are disappointed in not getting a Pokemon, but Pokemon are expensive. Dad offers picks up a few extra shifts to get us a Pokemon next year, and now I feel terrible. He tells us that his old friend Mark has a surprise for us and that we should go check out his house. When we arrive at Mark's house, he tells us to come upstairs. He wishes us a happy birthday and tells us about how he's a world professional trainer, and because Pokemon have made him happy, he's going to pay it forward by giving us a Pokemon. He's giving us the options between Charmander, Chikorita, and Mudkip. The only catch is these are region variants of the starters. We choose Mudkip, who's a grass type in this game, and we name it Lorm. Mark tells us that he knows we'll become a strong trainer and that maybe we'll be able to join the Pokemon team next year. He tells us we should challenge the gym in our town even though we won't be able to get a badge because it's off season and that we'd be making our name for ourselves. He also hooks us up with a Pokedex and 5 Pokeballs. After a bit of grinding, we head into Premium Town's gym and start causing problems by beating up all the trainers in this gym until we meet the gym leader, who's named Carl. He is impressed we got this far, and he'll be even more impressed with us if we beat him. Carl leads with Slack Off, and we lead with Lorm. 2 Mega Drains and 2 Tackles take out Slack Off. Next is this hacked in Linoon because it's only level 9, which goes down to Mega Drains. Since he can't give us a badge, he gives us a TM and offers for us to come challenge his gym when it's actually open. When we exit the gym, we run into Coach Zeke. He heard a student from the school was running through the gym like it was nothing, so he came over to see who it was. He's impressed we beat Carl, even though Carl was probably pulling his punches. Zeke wants us on his team right away, saying I haven't missed much practice and they really need a spark to get everyone going. He tells us to meet him in the school like right away, so of course I catch a Pidgey, who's an ice flying type, naming him Arlo. I then spend the next 30 minutes beating up every kid, staff, and wild Pokemon in the area until my team is level 15. We then meet up with Zeke and Miles, and since only the 2 best trainers in the schools can compete in the tournament, Zeke has us fight Miles, the best trainer on the team, to prove we should be in this tournament. Miles leads with a Hoppip, and we lead with Lorm, switching to Arlo, taking out Hoppip and 1 Icicle Crap. Next is Wailmer, so out goes Lorm, who Mega Drains the poor Wailmer to death. His last Pokemon is Ponyta, but with help from accuracy drops from Lorm's Mud Slaps, we take it out with only 4. Miles is glad we are on the team, and Coach Zeke is hyped that we lived up to this so-called hype. I didn't know being a gym leader was so impressive in our town, but you know, that's sick. We are now off to Parvis Town to challenge their high school team. On our way to Parvis Town, we pass a guy in black, and Lorba evolves into a Marshtomp learning Mudshot. On a favor for Miles, we visit his mom and find out her Tauros is missing. We cut down a tree, having learned to cut from a lumberjack back in our hometown, and find the Tauros, who must have been a child because he wasn't even that lost. Miles' mom thanks us for saving her Tauros and gives us the TM for Rock Smash. Turns out we can't go to Parvis Town because some dude in black robbed the guard of the key. Having remembered seeing a sketchy guy in black, we go back and rob him at the local rock mill for the thing he had originally robbed. All he has is a Zubat and Coughing, which go down pretty quickly to Arlo. After this fight, Arlo evolves into a Pidgeot, which is sick. Sketchy guy tells us we mess with some underground group called Team Rocket. We return and give the key to the guard, and he now lets us enter Parvis Town. Same as we did to our school, we jump every man, woman, and child I come across for their lunch money until we get to the meetup. We then meet up with our team and Taryn, Parvis Town's gym leader, but she's also the school's Pokemon team coach during the off-season. Miles is happy to see Terrain, but his former classmates don't share his excitement according to Terrain. Coach Zeke introduces himself, and Terrain tells us that due to the school being small, they have a unique challenge using Parvis Town's famous landmark, Challenger Cave. The teams must retrieve a water stone from the cave. The cave will also be full of challengers made up of volunteers from the town, but we will also have to battle the other team as well. We're then told to meet at the entrance of Challenger Kid. We meet with the other team, meeting Sophia and Laszlo, the other challengers. After some name calling from the other team, the race for the water stone is on. But first we catch a new member, Aaron, who's a dragon type in this game. We name him Lord Orn. We then meet Laszlo from the other team. He says he sent Sophia ahead, so we send Miles to catch up to her while we curb stomp Laszlo. Laszlo leads with Slugma, and we lead with Lord Orm. We then switch to Lorm and take it out with Mudshot. Next up is Golbat, and we repeat this strategy, but this time we switch to Arlo to make quick work of Golbat. Then is Graveler, same strategy, but now with Lorm. Then Rhydon suffers the same fate as Graveler, dying to Lorm. After solving a puzzle about poems to unlock the door, we meet up with Miles, and have to do one last fight with Sophia and Laszlo to decide who gets the Water Stone. They open up with Solrock and Lunatone. We lead with Lord Orm and switch to Lorm. Miles' Ponyta goes down to a single rock throw from Solrock. Lorm, after taking a hit from Solrock, we get all the HP back by killing Lunatone with Mega Drain. Next is Rhydon, which also gets Mega Drain. Lorm quickly learns Mud Bomb, then Solrock goes down to a Mega Drain Whirlpool combo. Sophia sends in Roselia, taking out Wailmer. Roselia takes out Lorm and then goes down to Lord Orm. Having won the battle, we get the Water Stone, and therefore win this challenge, making Premium Town the victor. Zeke tells us our next stop is Infigo City through Solum Forest. Through our travels through Solum Forest, we run into Mark. He tells us he's out here looking for that little crime organization called Team Rocket, which turns out isn't that small. Team Rocket is causing trouble in both this forest and Infigo City. He tells us we need to be careful and then leaves. We then meet up with Mark again and eavesdrop on Team Rocket, who plan to take over the power plant in Infigo City, when we also learn the leader of the Grunts has given up too much for this. We arrive in Infigo City and Team Rocket makes an announcement that they have the power plant and that if the mayor doesn't come alone with $100 million, they're not turning the power on. Coach Zeke tells us we have to wait for the police to handle things, but Mark says this is out of the police's hand and that him and I have to do some vigilante justice. Zeke isn't on board, but knows he can't really stop us, so to the power plant we go! As we fight our way through the power plant, beating up every criminal in our way, Lord Orn evolves into a Leyron. We end up solving some puzzle with Voltorbs, and while Mark takes the left door, we take the right. We run into that leader of the Grunts. It turns out he knows us. His boss said we'd be coming, calling us the hero of Premium Town and our apprentice, Mark. He then tells us we're too late and reveals he's Ryder, the #1 trainer from Infigo High School. He complains about being the golden boy and not being able to live up to his own reputation, but then Team Rocket gave him the chance to be his own person, but since Team Rocket is a bad guy, we gotta jump for Ryder. He leads with Vileplume and we lead with Arlo. After one pluck, he switches Vileplume to Electivire, so I switch into Lord Orn and take it out with a Dig. Next up is Blastoise, so we send in Lord Orm and take it out with 2 Mega Drains. Next is Magnezone, and it survives a Dig with Sturdy, so a Mega Drain and Dig should take it out. But he switches to Vileplume, and it gets taken out instead. Magnezone comes out, so we switch to Lord Orm and take it out with a Dig. Ampharos comes out, and we heal up Lord Orm and hit it with a Dig before Lord Orm gets taken out. Then Arlo also gets taken out, so Lorm has to come in and take it out with a Mega Drain. Lorm evolves into a Swampert and learns Muddy Water. Ryder promises he'll meet us again, and then Mark makes us promise not to tell anyone since he senses good is still in Ryder. We meet with the mayor and he came to fix the issue himself and is glad we saved his hide. He says he's grateful, and after discussing how the power plant was a diversion to rob the research lab of information on the legendary Pokemon in the region, he says beating Team Rocket isn't enough of a challenge for us, and so we won the challenge. So off to Arcanum Town we go. Undefeated champions, boys, let's go! But first we have to do a bit of gambling, and we suck at it, so we immediately give up. So we meet with Coach Zeke and Miles. They wanted to meet at Cerarium Stadium, where the regional tournament finals will be held. So we gotta make a pit stop. After grinding to level 40, we head to Cerarium Stadium, and after visiting good old Nurse Joy and talking to a science boy before going and visiting Coach Zeke and Miles on the stadium field. Coach Zeke tells us that Premium High hasn't been invited to a regional championship in years. Miles and I make a pact then and there to make it to the championship and face each other in battle. After everyone talks about how excited we are, Miles challenges us to a battle as a preview of what to expect in the tournament. Miles opens up with Pidgeot and we open with Lord Orn. We hit it with an Iron Head, but before we can finish it off with the second one, Miles switches Pidgeot to Aggron. We use Dragon Tail to force Aggron out and Pidgeot back in, which then goes down to another Iron Head. Next is Aggron, so we bring in Lorm to take it out with Dig, but he switches to Jumpluff. After Jumpluff does more than I was expecting to with Bullet Speed, I switch to Arlo and take it out with an Icicle Crash. Rapidash comes out and takes out Lorm, so we switch to Lord Orn, use Dig, and then Dragon Tail to take out Rapidash. He brings out Aggron, and a Dragon Tail forces us into Barley, the Zigzagoon. Barley goes down and we send out Lord Orn with another Dragon Tail, forces us into Geodude. We sacrifice Geodude to heal Lord Orn of his paralysis. Using Dragon Tail, we then force Aggron back out. After a dig, his Dragon Tail forces Arlo out, and then he full restores. We sacrifice Arlo to heal Lord Orn and take out Aggron with a dig. Wailord then goes down to a Dragon Tail. Miles says he's gonna train to beat us one of these days, and now that everyone is hyped again, it's time for our next gym challenge. While traveling through Red Cave, we run into a mysterious Sableye that sizes us up before leaving. I wonder what that was about. Only time will tell. When we arrive in Arcneum Town, we find out Miles is already facing Marina, one of the students, and that we will face Garm. When we arrive at the gym, we have a quick chat with Coach Zeke before watching Miles beat Marina with Rapidash. We then have to win our match or face a double battle. Green tells us he outruns a graveyard, and then asks us an important question. Are we afraid of ghosts? Of course, we ain't afraid of no ghosts, so we prove it by quickly dismantling his team. After finishing the battle, we find out we're halfway through the season, and we remain undefeated. Zeke tells us to head outside so we can discuss our next move, but before we can leave, we run into that Sableye again. We hear a voice in our head, and it clearly tells us to find the crypt, and that there is much to discuss. So I guess we gotta go find this crypt real quick. After following the mysterious voice, we head to a graveyard, and after jumping all the people mourning the loss of their pets and loved ones, we tear through the crypt and get to the basement where it was snowing, which doesn't make sense. We meet the Sableye, and the voice tells us Sableye brought us here to be recognized as the Voice's champion. But first, we must defeat the Internal Struggle, who kicks our ass the first time. Internal Struggle leads with Glalie, so we lead with Lord Orn, and take it out with a single Iron Head. Next is Charizard, so we switch to Arlo. It takes 5 Zen Headbutts to take Charizard out because it used a full restore. Next up is Skizor, so I send in Barley to heal up Lord Orn before sending him out. I use 3 Iron Defenses, then a Dragon Tail to force out his Swampert. Lord Orn goes down to a Mud Bomb Hail combo. We send in Arlo, who takes out Swampert with a single Icicle Crash. We then send out Geodude to revive Lord Orn. We quickly heal Lord Orn up and use 2 Iron Heads to take out Skizord. Next is Exotic, which takes out Lord Orn with Sidekick before Arlo takes it out with an Icicle Crash. Next is Meganium, so we send out Lorm, who goes down. Arlo avenges Lorm by taking it out. We then earn the Hero's Mark, and here we're the chosen one because we were different. How different? We don't know yet. After forgetting to talk to Zeke and Miles about where we're going, we go up a summit towards the right next town, and on our way, discover a Snorlax. Mark shows up and plays a little song on his Poke Flute to wake the Snorlax up, who instead of attacking us, leaves to find a better place to nap. Mark reveals the second reason he is here is because Team Rocket was supposedly around. He then leaves and we continue on our way. On our travels up the summit, we run into a group called the Rocket 4. They do a chant, and then we find out one of them tricked the others into letting them be the leader, which honestly wasn't very cool. Quick side break here while we go up. The Rocket 4 literally only shows up this one time, but they quickly became my favorite group in this entire game. They are my favorite characters. They're just so fun to listen to and banter. They're like a group of friends that actually love to do their job, which is always fun. They are here to look for a legendary, so I jump every single Rocket member until we get to the top of the summit where we encounter the Rocket 4, who decide they're going to capture that Snorlax from earlier so their boss won't get mad they didn't find the legendary. We then have to face all 4 members back to back with any healing. They all go down without much issue. The Rocket 4 then plays the Poke Flute to wake up that Snorlax, then absolutely dip. The Snorlax is understandably upset that its nap was woken up twice and finally attacks us. We catch the raging Snorlax, naming it SP Bow. We then run into Ryder, who tells us the Rocket 4 aren't useful, then brags about being some sort of king. For insulting my favorite characters, I beat the crap out of him. He leads with Vileplume, and we lead with SP Bow. After getting him low with a couple of body slams, he full restores, and we take it out with more body slams before Electivire comes out and takes out SP Bow. Lorm uses Dig, but he switches Electivire out with Blastoise, who goes down to a couple of Mega Drains. He then sends out Electivire again, who goes down to a Dig this time. Next up is Ampharos, so we send out Barley to revive SP Bow. SP Bow uses Rest, and then after a couple of turns, wakes up and uses Body Slam, getting a Paralysis. Then we rest again. Eventually, SP Bow goes down though, and we send in Lord Orn to finish off Ampharos. Next is Magnezone, so we send in Lorm to using Dig to take it out in a single hit. Ryder says he'll strain every waking moment to absolutely destroy us. And then he dips. When we get to Summon City, we do a bit of shopping in their market. After that, we enter the school, and Zeke tells us about how we are fashionably late and how the school loves their bird Pokemon. We are also going to face someone named Gale, but first we have to jump every student and staff until Lord Orn evolves into an Aggron. When we get to the top, we start the match. It turns out Gale is some sort of stalker who stalked us and knows all our strategies, except for the fact that we added SP Bow to the team. She opens with Skarmory, and we open with SP Bow, and switch into Lord Orn. After using Iron Head, Skarmory uses Whirlwind and forces Barley in. So after poor Barley faints, we send in Arlo and use Icicle Crash and then a Headbutt before going down. Lorm comes in and takes out Skarmory with a Muddy Water. Next is Pidgeot, so we send out SP Bow to use Rollout, which eventually takes out Pidgeot. Next is Gligar, who takes out Bow, so we send in Lord Orn and take it out with 2 Iron Heads. Next is Altaria, so we send in Lorm and revive Arlo, spending a couple of turns healing up Arlo and Lord Orm. After Lorm faints, we send in Arlo and take out Altaria with a single Icicle Crash. Finally is Dodrio, who also gets taken out the same way. Miles won his match as well, so our high school wins this match, which makes everyone watching disappointed. Next up is Aura Town, but first we head into the Wild Zone, meet up with some guy who talks about Explorer Eugene and how he found some keys. So we have to find some paper that got stolen from a rocket grunt, and then we gotta go back to Infigo City to meet Explorer Eugene. But first we gotta go back to the summit where we met Snorlax to find a gym leader to get Fly. Then we fly to Infigo City to the research lab, getting in using that code from the paper we got from the rocket we jumped. We then meet Eugene, retrieve the key from him. Then we go back to the Wild Zone, find a rock with a suspicious keyhole in it, unlock a secret pathway, and then we go to an ancient temple where we find a statue and meet a man who knows our name. He tells us the lore of Articuno, the legendary Pokemon of the Sarama region. This man is Giovanni, the antagonist of our story. He is the leader of Team Rocket, who he calls a world peace organization, which doesn't make sense from what we have seen. He calls us Articuno's champion and says if we cross Team Rocket again, he will do everything in his power to end us. Back in Aura Town, we meet with the other school and meet Diebler, the coach of Aura High's Pokemon team. He explains the challenge is like the others, a best 2 out of 3, but it takes place in a lighthouse, so we gotta go there. On our way there, we encounter a hole, which we jump into and find a portal that then kidnaps us to meet the legendary Pokemon, Articuno. Articuno talks to us, telling us stuff Giovanni already told us, but basically says it's our destiny to stop him. We then wake up in a cave, and it isn't clear how much time has passed. Turns out quite a bit has actually passed, because our match had been forfeited because we didn't show. Miles luckily won his, so it's time for a double battle to decide the winner. Sandra is upset, saying we only delayed the inevitable. Double battle opens with Golduck and Starmie. I lead with Bow. Miles starts with Pidgeot. Golduck eventually gets taken out thanks to me and Miles ganging up on it. Miles' Pidgeot ends up going down after a bit, then Jumpluff comes in taking out Sharpedo. Starmie eventually gets taken out by a Body Slam. Feraligatr and Lapras come out, taking Jumpluff out immediately. Eventually Feraligatr gets taken out from me and Miles ganging up on it. Lapras and Wailord go down the same strategy of ganging up on them. Diebler apologizes for his team's lack of sportsmanship, then congratulates us and leaves. Zeke tells us about how well we did and then tells us to get ready because we're heading to Nick City. But first we catch a Tentacool, who we named Dive, who at first was just going to be an HM mule for Waterfall, Surf, and Dive, but ends up becoming an official team member. After escaping the frozen hellscape that was Route 17, where I got hit by Blizzard and frozen more times than I have in my entire time playing Pokemon, we arrive at Nick's Town and meet up with Zeke. We have to find some kid named Yukio who's hiding in Mount Glass because no one will tell anyone what's going on. So climbing a mountain we go. After solving some puzzle, we make our way to a symbol of a Pokeball shape made of ice, where we are stopped. Some kid claiming to be the guardian of the mountain straight up tries to kill us with his Weavile. So Lord Orn takes it out with a single Iron Head. Next is Tyranitar, which goes down to a Heavy Slam Iron Head combo. Next is Glade, which we use a Dragon Tail to force Venusaur out, and then we have some trouble taking it out, resulting in just Iron Heading it a couple of times to take it out. Next is Glade, so we switch to Lorm and use Earth Power and Mega Drain to take it out. Next is Walrein, so we use Mega Drain and then an Energy Ball to take it out. Next is Snorlax, so we switch Arlo and use Icicle Crash on it. After that, Arlo goes down and Lord Orn comes in, and after Snorlax uses Rest and then gets so many flinches, it got to the point where I thought I was actually being cursed. It got so bad to the point I switched in Lorm, who also gets paralyzed, and then the paralysis and flinch also started on Lorm, but eventually Lorm gets the energy balls needed to take it out. Yukio apologizes, saying he normally would have talked it out, but was uneasy, and then Mark told him a crime syndicate was after his mountain. So Mark almost got us killed. Thanks, Mark. Yukio calls us the hero and tells us to tell our group we won the school challenge. So after reporting it to Zeke, we head off to Tandem Town, but first we have to track down the gym leader to get the HM Waterfall. But we eventually get it after a scavenger hunt. After we get Waterfall, we go back to Parvis Town and get an Eevee, naming it Flux, and evolve it into a Flareon. When we arrive in Tandem City, we meet with Miles and are told to meet him by the route to the league. Miles tells us about how he doesn't want to challenge the Champion League anymore, and how we're the strongest person he knows and that we could definitely be champion. Miles wants to be a coach now, like Coach Zeke, but now it's time for our challenge. But first we have to find ingredients and bully every student so the other school, who are stuck up students who can't fight without eating food, will fight us. Then it turns out they rigged the fight because they want their strongest to fight our weakest and our strongest to fight their weakest, so they can get a double battle and win because they're the best double battles ever. So we quickly jump the weak guy, and then me and Miles jump them in a double battles, where Miles carries the fight. Now that we've won this, we've gone undefeated, and it's time to head home to wait and see if we all get invited to the regional championship. After talking to Dad, he has a letter that says we are invited to the regional tournament, so off we go. When we arrive, we find out we have to face Miles. So after talking to a guy who is excited to see us fight, but doesn't know what we look like, and is our biggest fan, it was at this point I decided I'm going to win this tournament for him. Zeke gives us a brief talk to where he says he's proud of us, and he has feet on both sides since, he doesn't really care who wins because we're both from the same town. I'm gonna be honest, there are two fights in this tournament, Miles and Yukio, and Miles is the harder of the two. Miles leads with Pidgeot, and we lead with Arlo, switching to Lorm, who gets one shot by an Icicle Crash. We send in Flux, who gets a Fire Blast and Fire Fang before going down. Lord Orn then comes in, taking out Pidgeot with an Iron Head. Next is Heracross, and we switch Arlo in. Arlo hits it with a Fly before being taken out. We send in SP Bow, but he also goes down as well. I send in Dive to revive Lorm. Lord Orn then takes out Heracross with Dragon Claw. And next is his Aggron, so we switch in Lorm and hit it with an Earth Power before going down to a Dragon Rush. Lord Orn comes in to revive Lorm again, who takes Aggron out with another Earth Power. Rapid dashes up, so we revive Lord Orn. Lord Orn takes out Rapid Dash with a Stone Edge. He sends in Wailord, so we revive Lorm before Lord Orn gets taken down. Lorm then hits it with an Energy Ball before I have to heal. Wailord uses Rest, but gets taken down by the next Energy Ball. Next is Jump Luff, so I revive Arlo and Flux before Lorm goes down. Arlo then comes in and takes it down with an Icicle Crash, winning us the battle. Right before our next match, Articuno sends us a text saying, "Hey Pug, time to save the world." But first we had to beat up Yukio, who compared to Miles was much easier. The fight basically goes the same, where Lord Orn takes out most of its Pokemon, Weavile and Tyranitar go down to a single Iron Head, Glade gets taken out by a tag team Arlo and SP Bow, Walrein also gets tag teamed by Lorm and Lord Orn, Snorlax and Venusaur get taken out by Lord Orn. It was much easier. We're then called by the staff to the back room where Mark tells us Team Rocket have evaded Mount Glass. So we gotta go back to Tandem Town and jump every Team Rocket member until we get to Ryder, who as promised trained every waking moment to fight us. Sadly, like all his other fights, he loses and then decides to quit Team Rocket and go on a soul-searching journey. Which, I mean, good for him. He deserves it. Eventually we get to the peak where we see a portal, and Yukio tells us Giovanni already went into the portal. So I have to go through because I'm the only one who can as the chosen one, which makes me wonder how Giovanni got in. Giovanni brags about catching Articuno and mocks us for not stopping him sooner. He says he's gonna kill me and then make world peace. Giovanni leads with Persian and we lead with Flux, switching to SP Bow, but eventually SP Bow goes down. So we switch to Lord Orn, who takes out Persian with 2 Dragon Claws. To our next Nidoqueen, so we send in Lorm, who takes it out with 2 Muddy Waters. Next is Articuno, so I decide to gamble and send in Flux, who hits it with a Fire Blast and Fire Fang before Giovanni and I need to heal. But after one more Fire Fang, Flux goes down. Lord Orn comes in and takes Articuno out with an Iron Head. Next is Rhyperior, who after a good hit takes down Lord Orn. Lorm comes in and takes out Rhyperior with an Energy Ball. Next is Sceptile, so out comes Arlo, who hits it with a Fly before being taken down. We send in Lorm to hit it with a Hammer Arm before we revive Flux. Luckily, Hail takes out Sceptile. Next is Prodon, so we revive Lorm and go for an Energy Ball, but get hit with the Guillotine. We then revive both Lorm and Lord Orn, but eventually Dive goes down. I risk Lorm again. Luckily he goes for Crab Hammer, letting us KO with Energy Ball. Giovanni says to change his nothing and that he's going to catch Mewtwo. He then tells us that he admires our persistence and that he's going to leave the Chimera region. Articuno then tells us they would like to travel with us to get stronger to protect Kanto. We name the ice bird Kuno. Then Mark and Yukio tell us that they couldn't have done it without us, and Mark adds to check in with our old man because we probably got invited to the Pokemon League after all this stuff we've done. Sure enough, when we meet with our dad, he has an invite for the Pokemon League. So it looks like our final challenge is the Pokemon League. During our travels through Victory Road, we catch an Alakazam naming him Spoons. When we arrive at the league, I didn't realize how underleveled I was at first, but after heading into the first Elite Four member, the level jump was apparent. First up is Frey, a Fire-type user. She took me a couple of attempts, but eventually I got through her. First is Macargo, so we lead with Dive. We hit him with the Surf, and they use a Light Screen. So knowing that they're going to use a full restore, I use Dive, which luckily does one-shot. Next is Typhlosion, who hits us with an Earthquake, and we hit a Dive, doing half but not one-shotting. Dive then goes down to a Thunder Punch, and we use Flux to revive Dive, but Flux goes down to an Earthquake as well. Send in Spoons, who luckily takes out Typhlosion with a Psychic. Next is Houndoom, who I use Lord Orn for, but get crit one-shot by Flamethrower. Dive hits a Dive, but it doesn't even do half. We use our Revive on Lord Orn, getting taken out, and then switch to Spoons to heal up Lord Orn. When Lord Orn then comes in, hits a Stone Edge, taking out Houndoom. Next up is Camerupt, so out comes Lord Orn, who actually tanks a hit, and then takes out Camerupt with 2 Earth powers. Next up is Arcanine, who I was actually scared of. Kuno goes down reviving Spoons, and Lord Orn luckily hits a Stone Edge, not quite one-shotting, because he uses Fire Fang. We then take it out next turn. Next is Blossom, and we use Spoon to revive Kuno, and Kuno takes it out with 3 Flies and a Blizzard. The next Elite Four member is Carl, the gym leader from the beginning of the game. He still has a normal type team, and this fight wasn't as hard as it was more annoying. The difficult part was his Licky Licky and 2 Slackkings, which are tanks. His other team members kinda went down fairly easily, so I'm not really gonna cover this fight. The Elite Four is apparently the Elite 2 in this game because the next person we have to challenge is Mark, who is the champion of the Suriyama region. They keep the champion a secret in the Suriyama region, so one person doesn't become too famous. But if you were paying attention in the story, they hint at Mark being the champion quite a bit. He is the Suriyama region's strongest trainer, but it was a surprise to me because I didn't pick up on those hints at all. To sum up Mark's speech, he says he saw himself in us, and he isn't surprised we made it to him at all. That's why he gave us a starter in the first place. Mark leads with a Salamence, and we lead with Kuno, taking it out with a single Blizzard. Next is his Tangrowth, so we send out Flux, who one-shots with a Fire Blast. Next is Lucario, and I accidentally send in Lord Orn, getting him killed. So I revenge kill with Lorm after he uses 2 full restores. Next is Magmortar, so I send in Dive, who hits it with a Dive and a Surf before going down to Burn. Spoons then comes in and finishes Magmortar with a Psychic. Next is Porygon Z, which Spoons hits with a Psychic before going down. Flux goes down so we can revive Lord Orn, who after heal stalling for a bit, we revive Spoons, who I know can outspeed and finish Porygon Z with Psychic. Finally is Snorlax. I revive Lord Orn and hit it over and over again with Iron Heads and healing until Snorlax eventually goes down and we beat champion Mark. Mark tells us he's proud of us, and then Zeke and Miles show up to tell us they had our backs the entire way and they wish they could have seen our fight. Mark tells them he's glad they're here, but the champion ceremony is only for champions. We then get entered into the Hall of Fame, and that is where Pokemon Winter ends. This game was incredibly fun to play. I enjoyed every bit of it, even if I wasn't really paying attention to the story in some places. The story is a little cliche in parts, but who doesn't love a good old cliche game, right? Overall, this Pokemon game is fun and enjoyable. The story can be a little weak in places. My only complaint was that there wasn't a lot of new Pokemon variations, even though they introduced it to us. Besides the starters, I saw 3 throughout my entire playthrough. Pidgey and Aeron lines, which I caught, and then a Coughing and Wheezing, which I couldn't find and I couldn't catch. I recommend you try Pokemon Winter out for yourself if you enjoy it, and until my next video, I will see you guys later.